This design calls for a paved sort of exchange area between two paths. The path coloured red that comes in from the right and the green path coloured green that comes in from the left. The designer has enclosed that sort of landing or interchange area with a polyline. Let's select that polyline now and go to properties and have a look at its properties. It's in fact not a closed polyline, but you can adjust that and turn it into a closed polyline. But what this gives us is the ability to set, say, quadratic B-spline, do some curve fitting on that polyline. You'll notice over here the designer's been careful to square that off, and the landing area is squared off to the path. In this zone, it's not quite the way the designer would want it. And what you can do is let your mouse hover over one of these vertices or control points and insert a vertex. And you can do that a couple of times. What that does, you may not be able to see it too easily, but what it does is it gives you additional vertices. So I can move that one in if I need to. There's another one here, and stretch it and square things off. Move this vertex along so I get a much smoother shape. I could come down into this area here and I'd want another vertex there and maybe even another vertex there, and then I can pick that one there and stretch it out, pick this one, stretch it, and that one, whoops, that vertex can be stretched there. So now this little path here is squared off to the landing area. So being able to tweak the polyline that describes a shape, adding extra vertices, is a really important little skill to practice when you're using GardenCAD. If you look at one of the polylines internally that obviously represents some sort of flagstone embedded, say, in some concrete base, and if we go to properties there, notice that the polyline is not closed. That means filling is not possible. So if you were wanting to draw a polyline like that one, let's pick draw a polyline, it's actually better to draw like so. And as you get near this point, right click and close it. Now the polyline is closed, you can clearly see the control points there. And if we go to properties, when you've got a closed polyline like that, it's possible to switch it to a fill. And I'll unselect all. Now we've got what could be a embedded flagstone paver in that area. You'd probably want to choose a much softer colour for it. Maybe some sort of light browny colour. Something like colour 43 might work. And there we have the stone. So if we then use the match properties tool, modify match properties, pick up that polyline and we'll match it to that one. Now we can eliminate this one here. There we have our flagstone drawn much more easily. Notice that most of these have been copied, I suspect. So it's more efficient to draft by turning that one into a block. We'll call it FLGST, and as a pick point we'll pick it in the middle there and we'll OK. Now we have that as a block, so we could remove, just to illustrate. So instead of having several polylines, let's erase those. Now it becomes a pretty simple matter to copy those and pop them in space. You could also copy and let's overlap it a little and then select it and scale. So we can scale that by say 0.7, it becomes a smaller one. If we pick it, and we could also rotate it, just spin it into a new position such as that. So that's just one entity, one block. and the reference is copied several times. It's much more efficient and makes for a much smaller drawing than the one that we were dealing with initially. To change the stacking order so that at the moment the flagstone appears on top of the hatching for the concrete, it's on layer 0. So what we'd need to do is make a new layer called flagstone. Let's do that. So we'll make a new layer. Instead of calling it layer 1, we'll go to details and we'll call it FLGST. Oops, my caps lock was on. Take it off. GST, and we'll say OK. So if all of these were now, go to properties, we'll transfer them to the layer flagstone, and then if we go to this is on a layer called garden patio. Just for the moment, I'll change the colour of garden patios as a temporary thing. We'll make that just a standard default colour so we can see it quite clearly. So at the moment, that white overlaps our embedded flagstone. So what we do is come over here. This is the layer order box. We need to make sure that layer flagstone is going to be moved underneath. So we can just drag it down. For the moment, I'll put it underneath there, and we'll move layer 0 up. Right, oops. I like layer 0, even though it's turned off here. I like it to sit right at the top of the layer stack. So now, in theory, we get this one and go to properties. It's on garden patio. It's now currently sitting above the flagstone layer, but what we want is the flagstone layer to be above the garden patio. So we get hold of it and drop it above there, and now when we come back to the drawing, we get the result we want, which is that the hatching indicating the concrete has gone under the paving stones. That was a little long-winded, but I hope you get my drift. It's not my drawing. If I understood the layer structure a bit better, it would be quicker. Don't forget that if you select any one of these closed polylines and go to properties, you can scroll down the bottom here and get the area and even the length of the perimeter of that closed shape.